Hey, how's it going, guys? For people in a rush, I just want to tell you between these two tablets, I would pick the ONN Surf 12.1-inch Tablet Pro. And I think there's a few reasons for that, two or three to be more specific. Now, for one, I do know that this is $50 more expensive. It goes for $179, while this one is for $129. But the price, for me at least, is justified. One of the reasons being is because I can watch videos in full HD 1080p on like streaming platforms, and then also being able to watch it at 1440p at 60 FPS on YouTube. So that's a big benefit. Just media consumption on here is really good. And also just having a bigger screen is more enjoyable, especially at an affordable price like this. And performance is pretty good. It's actually better. That's to be expected because it does have 2 gigabytes of RAM more, a Helio G99 processor. That means games are going to be a little bit more smooth on this. You can play at slightly higher graphic settings, so take that how you will. But that's why I would pick this, and that's why I choose this. Now, that doesn't mean that this is a bad option by any means necessary. This is still a good option. The only thing that's limiting is 4 gigs of RAM. And I will say there are some things that are better that you might choose this for. For one, it is cheaper, and you do get like the same quality of speakers, a good screen. The only thing about the screen is I feel like this is not as bright as this one, just comparing the two. And I'm kind of used to 11-inch tablets, using them, so it was nicer to use a 12.1-inch tablet to watch videos and play games on, and everything was just a bit more smoother there. They both have a 90 hertz screen though, so keep that in mind, so this will still perform pretty well. It's pretty responsive too. Nothing wrong with that. You are future. Oh, the other thing is that I am future-proofing myself with the 12.1-inch a little bit more, so it should last or not go bad as quickly because it does have a little bit more RAM and a slightly better processor. This is the Snapdragon 685 on here. You can still play games on here. Everything runs pretty smoothly as of right now, so if you want something for here and now, something affordable for maybe your kid, or for media consumption, maybe this does a good job. You got the 4 speakers, the DTS-X audio, which does a great job, by the way, on both of them. It's a pretty immersive sound because it emits from both sides. There's 4 speaker grills on each side for this one and this one, and it doesn't get too tinny. It gets relatively loud. It does a great job there. And the other thing is that the battery life will last a little bit longer on this one than on this one. And there's a few reasons why. I mean, obviously processors could be one thing, but also having a higher resolution on this, that's another thing. The one thing that is off-putting for me about this is that this has 64 gigabytes of internal storage, while this one has 128. I think 128 should be starting to become more and more of the standard, even at this price point. Maybe that's just me. They do have expandable storage here, so that's not a bad thing, not a bad choice there, at least that much. But still, I feel like we should have 128 gigs. You could argue that performance is proportional to the pricing, but again, both of them do a great job of doing basic things, and the Geekbench scores are pretty similar. Well, again, proportional, I would say. This is definitely lower, as you can tell here. Here's what we see on CPU-Z here. It's a little hard to hold these in one hand. I guess that's the only downside with the 12.1-inch. It's not going to be as easy to carry around as the 11-inch. So just going through these here. These are the specs. I'm not going to go through everything. It's a little more of a deep dive if you want the nitty-gritty stuff here. Also, I just want to say, I wish they had a 1920 by 1080 resolution on here. I don't know why they have this weird resolution, 1840 by 1280, because the one thing that worries me is some streaming platforms, it might be downscaled to HD because it doesn't exactly have a 1080p screen or resolution. So that's my only gripe and concern. It doesn't look bad by any means. It's not like pixelated or whatever. I mean, maybe to someone who has like a very high resolution phone, or they're used to that, or if you're coming from like an iPad or something, you might notice it a little more, but on here, it's still not bad overall, all things considered, both ways. But keep in mind that this is not as sharp as this. This has a 187 ppi or pixels per inch, and this one has 249 ppi or pixels per inch. Basically, long story short, the higher pixels per inch, the sharper your screen is. Comparing gameplays against both, the ONN 11 Tablet Pro, we're at the lowest settings here for RuneScape, and it's performing just fine. We're getting about the 30s to 40s, and then sometimes 60s when looking down. This is at the lowest graphic settings. And then on the 12-inch, it just does a better job. It's more smooth. You'll get a little bit more frame rate. So it's kind of to be expected, but both both tablets perform pretty well overall. Really can't complain here. Here's where you start to see more of a difference. So on the 11-inch here, we have the graphics settings a little bit higher, and same with the 12-inch. And you can see that this is barely getting to 20, while the other 12-inch is handling it a lot better at like 20s to 30. It does drop here and there, so it's not smooth, but you can say that's more playable than this, arguably. I mean, some people might be able to play at this, but again, this is at higher graphic settings, so it's still playable at the lowest graphics. If you don't care about graphics, then this is still a good option. The 11-inch, I mean, is still a good option. Here's Genshin Impact. At the lowest graphic settings, this is running pretty smoothly on this tablet here, the 12-inch. It runs well on both of them, don't get me wrong, but definitely smoother on here. I wish there was a place where it can show like an FPS counter on the side to give you a more accurate reading. But yeah, nonetheless, it's playable on both sides. Now, if we step it up a little bit, step up the graphics, then it's a different story. After changing the graphics settings to the maximum on both of them, it's obviously the 12-inch is holding up a little better, but the 11-inch is still pretty good by all measures. I mean, it's still impressive. Now, again, more noticeable drops in frame rate, but I'm noticing that on both sides, not just the 11, but the 12.1-inch too. And that kind of just reminds us that this is a budget tablet, or these both are still considered budget tablets. Nonetheless, I think it's playable on both devices. For the less important stuff, but things that I still appreciate, are the fact that it's made of a metal body design. This one's rose gold. This one is like gray. They have 4 different colors for both of them total. And the other cool little thing that I appreciate is the attention to detail is the fact that they have a USB-C to USB-C cable along with a 20-watt wall outlet for fast charging. And not just that, but it has the same color as the tablet itself. So that's kind of cute that they included it that way. I kind of appreciate that little attention to detail. Now, one area I haven't tested out too thoroughly just yet, and I'm still kind of testing out, is the battery life. But I'm hoping to have a update in the description by the time you see this, hopefully, or you can check back. And I'll probably post it on social media as well, what the actual battery life is. But again, it'll last longer on here than on this one, and for those reasons that I mentioned before. I almost forgot to mention that this has a slightly better rear camera on the 12.1-inch, being 8 megapixels versus the right one, or the 11-inch one, being 5 megapixels. They both have a 5 megapixel front camera located on the middle here. This isn't really going to be a deal breaker either way, I think, for like 99% of people. But nonetheless, Walmart's done a great job with both of these tablets. You can't go wrong with either one. I applaud them for this, honestly. They did a better job than Best Buy, that's for sure, with their garbage Digiland tablet. Now, to be fair, this goes on sale for $49.99 on Best Buy's website right now. This is a Black Friday deal / maybe December, so it might be worth checking out for this. Again, lower specs, pretty old specs too. 3 gigabytes of RAM, 32 gigabytes of internal storage. It's running Android Go edition. So if that appeals to you, if you want something more affordable for your kids, then this is an option. I wouldn't put it over these. Obviously not. This is so much better and it's worth the money. That one, maybe if you don't love your kids as much. I'm just kidding. This is if you're really on a tight budget, then it makes sense. But I digress. I'm going with this one as my first choice. This would be my second. What do you guys think, though? Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. I'd love to hear your thoughts. And stay tuned, as I'll be checking out some other tablets that I found that are about the same price as this and are actually a little better, surprisingly, because the market's moving forward all the time. Anyways, guys, thanks for watching.